Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to take a look at the wonderful new Select Color dialog that's part of the latest build of Manifold. And this is a massive new capability that's really cool, very useful. And what it does is it allows you to work with transparent colors, partially transparent colors. So let's see how this works. We're looking at Manifold System Release 9 here. And this is a map that I've opened up that has a Bing Street Maps layer, and then another layer called buffers, which is a drawing, and then another layer called drawing, which is a drawing as well. The drawing layer is currently open, is currently empty rather. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some. Let's draw some triangles here. 1, 2. There's save changes. Let's draw another triangle here. Save changes, and then finally let's draw one more. Let's put it right there. Save changes. Okay, and this is how Manifold has looked for, I don't know, ever since forever. It's drawing with opaque colors. Now we can change the opacity of the layer here using the layers pane, but that changes the opacity of all the objects in that layer. So let's make the drawing layer 50%. And you can see how when we change the layer to 50%, the background layers will shine through the objects that are in the drawing layer because they're only 50% transparent. But within those objects themselves, you really can't see how those objects are transparent or where they actually are. For example, we can't see where the overlap is here between that, furthest back triangle and the triangle which is most on the top. So let's go back and make that 100% so we're not confusing things with layer opacity. What we really like to do is we like to draw these triangles with colors that are partially transparent so that we can see the triangles behind them. And to do that, we use the nifty new style dialog, and the nifty new select color dialog. And if you just pick any of these existing colors, well, we just done another opaque color because all the colors here that are in this grid field are standard colors that are not partially transparent. They're fully opaque. And that's because it's really hard to tell from such small color samples whether they're transparent or not. So they all start off being that way. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to click More, and that's going to launch the Select Color dialog right there. And the Select Color dialog is has a lot of features here. It has a lot of ability to change the way colors look. It has the ability for different styles here in the gradient pane. When you click into the gradient pane, that immediately sets the color to wherever that crosshair is. And if you drag it, you'll change the color. And you can see that here's a preview square that shows the original color. Here's a preview square that shows the current color. And whenever we drag this, we can release it. When we release the drag, it sets the color there. It also sets the past history. So we can see all the various colors that we've set before when we release the drag. Let's go back to the latest one. And we have two other controls here. We have a hue control here, which changes the hue that's in the background of this gradient square. So let's set it to nifty green. And this square here sets the opacity. And that could be either the opacity or the alpha. Colors now in Manifold have 4 numbers that are associated with them. Red, green, blue, and alpha. A is for alpha. Alpha means transparency. When you click on alpha to set the slider with alpha, that's transparent. That means a value of 0 is fully opaque, and alpha transparency 255 is fully transparent. It's actually the same thing. It just sort of depends on how you look at it. Whether you look at it as being an alpha transparency value, or whether you look at it as an opacity percent value. The layers pane uses percent opacity, so by default the dialog is set to use opacity. When you first launch it, it'll show opacity here in the radio button. So 0% opacity means it's fully transparent. 100% opacity means it's completely opaque, and then somewhere in between means it's partially transparent and partially opaque. So you can see as we're moving this that changes the preview, the current color preview, and the current color preview has that checkerboard background so that when the color is partially transparent, you can see the checkerboard through it. That shows you what the transparency is. Note that whenever I move this around, whenever you move any of the controls, all the other controls are automatically updated, and they're updated in real time. For example, the hexadecimal value readout that gives the current color. All these chroma, luminance, lightness, cyan, magenta, yellow, key numbers change. The RGB colors change, and that works for any of the controls. So for example, this controls saturation. A low saturation means gray. A high saturation means fully colored. And this display here goes from saturation low to saturation high, and in that direction, and it goes value, which is brightness or intensity, from a very low brightness and intensity, which is black, to a very high brightness and intensity, which is a very light bright color, or someplace in between. Notice that whenever we change any of these settings, all the other settings change as well, including the readouts here. And what does this guy down here do? Let's change this to a slightly different. Let's change it to that color right there. The color gradient that is within any one of these sliders sets the gradient for. It shows you what the color would look if you move the slider thumb to that position. This little notch is called the thumb. It's in many other systems use like a little arrow or a little handle glyph. They're manifold to in the less is more category to keep the display from being too clustered. Just simply puts an indent into the border of the slider, and that shows you where the slider position is. If you make the saturation very high, it'll be that color. If you make the saturation very low, it'll be that color. And likewise here, for example, when we change the red value here, not changing anything else, a low red will be more bluish, a high red will be more pinkish. And of course it will change the other hues as well to the extent that you change the red color. So all that's interactive. If you like, you can click into a number and change that. So for example, we can make that 25 to make it a very low red color. Or we can make it a, let's make it a 220 to make it a very high red color. And if you click into it and change it, 195, and you change your mind, you can just click escape, and that cancels it. Or you can just click control backspace, and that'll delete it as well. Let's see, and then to enter it, let's change it to say 120. Just click enter. That commits it. That commits the value. In any of these sliders, when you touch it, for example, here you can see this little brace that's right there, these little brackets in the corners. That means the slider has the focus. Instead of doing a traditional Windows dotted outline, which ends up looking cluttered with this many controls in the dialog, we just put those little corners there on it. And when the control has an outline, the arrow keys work. So you can click left arrow, right arrow, or up arrow to increase the value, or down arrow to decrease the value. And you can do shift arrows to increase it in bigger notches, up or down, or even a page up, page down. And that also works here. So for example, if you want to increase the number just by 1, you can click up arrow, or down arrow, or right arrow to increase, or left arrow to decrease, or shift to increase, I think by 5 is the increment. So that allows you a level of precision that makes it easier to change, or especially here in the hue color, if you want to change things just a little bit by clicking one click at a time to move it one hue value at a time, you can get exactly the right hue that you want by changing that. And let's increase the saturation here. Let's make it a nice pretty color there. And so there's a blue color. Now what's in the rest of the dialog here? What are the other controls? There are two styles of doing these gradient squares. There's this style where you pick the hue and then you choose saturation and value in the square here. Or if you like a Microsoft look, you can do hue versus saturation. So the way this works is that you pick the hue by putting the square wherever you want, whatever hue, and then you can also choose whether you want a very saturated color. See, saturation here is high, or a very unsaturated color down here, which is more towards gray or white, depending on the value, the brightness of it. So that makes it bright, that makes it less bright. To use this display, you really need the more expanded version of the dialog. That's what this button does here. It can expand and collapse it. I prefer this display because with this display, you can just change the hue to choose the hue, whatever hue you pick, whatever hue you want, and then set the brightness and saturation by moving the crosshair here. So these are all the controls that you need, including opacity controls, to set the color exactly the way you want using this display. With this display, sometimes you also want to set the value. that is the brightness or intensity of it. And so you typically need to work with the larger dialog. So there's that. Let's go ahead and close this dialog, which means we're going to choose this color right there, current color, which means I'm going to specify a partially transparent color. Let's make it about like that. I'm going to click OK. And you can see instantly the partially transparent color takes effect. Now what we're seeing is how the objects that we drew are themselves partially transparent. So we can see not only the object itself, but we can see how they overlay each other and how they intersect each other. And that's very cool. Let's get back here to the color dialog to look at some more of the features of it. Notice that it remembered the last setting that I left it at. So for example, if you like this Microsoft display, if that's the way you want to work, fine. Leave it that way, and the next time it launches it will work. It will be that way. The system will remember the settings for the dialog across sessions. So if you close Manifold and then come back to working it and launch it again in a week, the dialog will launch with these settings. And that means using opacity, using hue saturation that way, and using a collapsed dialog, using the compact dialog. You can change that if you want to set it to alpha and leave it expanded, and it'll be that way when you go back. I'm going to go back here to this display because, like I say, this is a display that I like best. Let's look at some of the other features of the dialog. This guy right here is the previous color, and that goes back 32 colors, a 32 color history memory for all the changes that we've done for the preceding 32 colors that we've changed. And go all the way back to the front. These colors here are the colors that we've previously clicked OK on, that we've committed. So for example, that's the color that we set the last time. Right? I'll click on that right there. This color that I set before then. This color I set before then, that's another color that we set in the past. And you can see how I was tinkering with the look for various colors here. So for example, if I want to see what that one looks like, I'll click OK, and there it is. I'll come back here, choose more. And you can see now it's been added to the tail end of the list. This remembers the last 14 colors that you've clicked OK with. When you add a new one, let's add, say, that one right there. Watch how the next time I open this, all these will shift to the left. Remember that this was the one that was there before, and this is the one there now. Let's click OK. Great. Now let's click more. And you can see this whole row has now shifted to the left. So if I want to choose that one, which is this more subtle green, or that one there, I can do that. And that's what it is. There are other color systems besides RGBA, red, green, and blue. For example, there is HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance, which is right here. So if you want, you can. If you're a fan of luminance settings, you can change luminance to 60, and that does that. Or you can change luminance to let's make luminance 100%, and that's luminance there. You can change chroma, which is yet a different value. I don't work with any of these. I'm an RGBA person. But if that's the way you like it, that's what you can do. Let's set this to HCY, which is hue, chroma, and luminance. And this will change the values. So you can see how this changes hue, chrominance, and luminance. Hue, chroma, and luminance values. And you can see all these are updated. And they're all updated to be comparable, analogous. So when you're changing the color model and HCY model, it'll also do the automatic computation to compute what the equivalent is in RGB, or if you prefer, in HSV, hue saturation value, or HSL, hue saturation lightness. It doesn't do CMYK in this readout, because CMYK is approximate in this setting. CMYK are printer colors. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. And to really do those with 100% accuracy, you have to get into this incredibly complex system of choosing color profiles, ICC color profiles, and stuff like that. There's hundreds of them. People rarely get it right. So what Manifold does is Manifold just uses the same approximation that pretty much everybody uses for CMYK. There's talk about potentially adding yet another control to allow people to choose profiles, so you can use exactly precise CMYK values, but we'll see if that's something that people really want or they don't care about. So we've pretty much covered all that there. Yes, I don't think we did this. Let's say there's a particular color that you really like. Let's say I love that color blue, and I want to keep using it over and over. What I can do is I can save it as a favorite. So now it's saved as a favorite, and the favorite will be remembered. Here I've previously saved another favorite, and with a single click you can recall that color. And this is very handy if there's a certain set of colors that your organization tends to use or that you tend to prefer, that you use over and over. Just add them to your favorites grid, and the favorites grid will be remembered in between sessions. These colors down here are just the last colors that you happen to have used in this session. And the same with this history, the 32 color history. That's just back and forward, which is the ones that you've used in this particular session. So those aren't remembered. There's talk about potentially adding these colors down here, mostly the ones you most recently clicked OK on, to memory. Maybe that'll happen in the next build, maybe not, I don't know. Depends how people feel about it. But for now, the things that are remembered are whether the dialog is expanded or contracted, you know, what the style is of the gradient square here, and whether it's alpha or opacity, because those tend to be religious issues with people. Some people just love working with opacity, other people prefer alpha. You can do it however you like. If you ever change your mind about any of these colors here that are in this color grid, for example, this one right here, which is was not an original that I added in a previous session, I can right-click on that and choose Restore Default, and now I've restored the default. And likewise here, if I want to restore the default, I can do that as well. So that's pretty much it with the color dialog. It's really easy to use. Let me show you a few other new things that are kind of cool. I'll click OK. Let's set that up like that. And what I'll do here is I'll change this to an opaque color. I want to change this to an opaque color to show you something else that's really nifty. And what kind of opaque color shall we use? Well, let's use that color right there. No, that's ugly. Let's do something else. Let's use that color there. That's better. I don't know why, but I've predilection for blue. So this is an opaque color. One of the other new things that is in this build is that Tools Options. If we go here to Colors, you can see here that all the color wells now have these nifty partially, they're all transparency aware. They all show checkerboards as background, as they do here in the style pane. So if there are transparent colors that are used, you can see those transparent colors in how they look against that checkerboard. And notice that the selection colors are now partially transparent. And that just gives a spectacular effect, which people have been wanting to do a long time. So if you control click on something to select it, it becomes transparent. It's not only selected color, but it's also partially transparent selected color. So you can see objects that are behind it. And that's extremely useful because oftentimes when you select something, you want to see how all the objects intersect with each other. And you can make that more or less transparent if you like by just setting the transparency that's used in Tools Option for the selection color. This is the default. It seems to be working well. And it's extremely handy. It's just, I mean, you can't beat it as a great way to spot things. Here we can see that this background that is set here, let's make this partially transparent, this color that we're using. And to do that, I'll just change the opacity slide. Let's make it very more transparent, much more transparent like that. I click OK. And you can see how, you know, whatever is shown here in the dialog will, whatever's shown here in the dialog actually shows the transparency through it. And if you want, you can change the color of that. And the way you change the color of that background, it's partially tinted right here. You can use the square right here. So if you don't like this kind of light gray background, you can make it fully transparent. And notice how this immediately makes the background fully transparent against the checkerboard, so you can see the checkerboard better. That, to my taste, kind of makes this a little bit too abrupt in the style pane, but that's up to you. You can change it, and that will be remembered, you know, for the next time you launch Manifold. You can set to the default, back to the default by doing that, or you can set it to any other color that you want by you know, using our color picker dialog or select color dialogs. So for example, let's say you wanted a very light greenish tint like that. You can do that. Click OK, and now you can see how that's set that way. I prefer to use neutral colors, neutral gray colors, partially transparent neutral gray against the checkerboard, which seems to work best. But again, that's entirely up to you, how you want to do it. Let's set it back to the default. All the other settings here, everything is now aware of transparency. So whatever you set here, if you want to set the outer border Let's set the outer, make a fatter outer border. Let's make it that 6. And let's put an outer thing there, and let's change that color to, well, let's make something contrasting like there. You can see we've now drawn a halo around that, which is an outer border, and you can see there's that halo appearing around those objects there. We'll turn off the Bing Street Map so you can see it. This is a spectacularly useful facility, and when you're drawing maps, very often you want to draw things in maps, and I find it especially important with things like buffer zones. So for example, here are buffer zones, and I actually copied this off the web. It's the demo drawing, which I think is used in the What's New page. I could be wrong, but it's very convenient. You can see how, for example, buffer zones overlap, things like that. So you just can't beat that. I'm sure I probably forgot something in this dialogue because there's lots of things that it does. The only thing that I'd suggest is that just keep in mind that just don't make it any more complicated, overcomplicated. It's actually a very simple kind of deal. Let's turn the drawing back on here. This drawing back on. Double click that. Just remember that it's like picking colors however you want. And I'm going to turn off that border. I don't like that border. That outer border. Don't need it. There you go. And any of these colors can be made transparent. Now, some of them it doesn't make much sense to make partially transparent, but you can still do it. For example, if for dark outline that's around the area outlines, you can make that a partially transparent gray, and it seems to match things very well. And if you don't want to use transparency, well, don't. Just use solid colors like we've been doing since time immemorial, like everybody else does. So I hope you've enjoyed this demo. I know this video has gone somewhat long, as we've gone over 20 minutes, but there's a lot to do with this new dialogue. It's wonderful how you can get into playing with transparent colors and use them for greater productivity. And some of the default stuff, like the partially transparent selection, is just a real winner, even if you're not doing actual cartography and picking colors to style things. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Tell your friends, tell them about Manifold, and get that new build and dive right into it. Goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.